Welcome back to Market It with Atma, where we give you the tips, tools, and strategies to help your business succeed. I'm your host, Story, and today we have on the show Pastor Greg Key with Renewed Life Church.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So I know it's a cold day today, and I wanted to dive right in so that I don't take up too much of your time. So can you tell us about your journey with Renewed Life Church and what your inspiration was by developing the church in this community?
Sure. I was living with all the cool kids in Dallas for a while. I grew up in Arlington, and so I'd escaped and went there for about 15 years. And a friend of mine was opening up a rock and roll club here in Arlington called Dream World Music Complex. And he knew I always wanted to have a church in one like that. And a lot of my friends didn't go to church. They were not going to be part of that, but they didn't mind having conversations with me. And they said, if you ever come back home, hey, we might check it out.
Right.
And so when he opened up his club, I opened up the church, and we just started a journey since then on Division Street in Arlington. And now we're back on Division Street.
Wow. And how long ago has that been since it started?
The actual start date was in 2001.
Wow.
And so we became official October 13th, 2002.
Wow. So you've been through COVID and all of the ups and downs that we've all gone through as well. That's a long time to be in this area. And you say Dallas and Arlington, how it's so far, but yet so close. That's just Texas cities, isn't it?
They're just Texas cities, but I mean, culturally, very different. I mean, if you look at Dallas-Fort Worth, completely different. Arlington, I joke and call it Arling Fun because it's all about entertainment. That's what everybody's here about. And so trying to get people to have a spiritual conversation and go deeper, it can be a challenge.
I bet. Now, you come from a musical background, right?
I do.
So do you still play music in the church or...
They let me play drums every now and then. I used to be in a Christian heavy metal band called Perusia back in the late 80s, early 90s. Played all around here. I guess my claim to fame was I got some airplay in Finland a couple of times. So
hey, it's a pretty fun experience, I bet. Nobody else has done. That's awesome. So your target audience, the people you're looking to really work with in your community, in the Arlington community, have never experienced Christianity. Is that right?
The majority, I would say half. Most of my friends have not grown up in church. Now, that was a strange thing back in the 80s. I remember somebody questioning me about Easters, thinking I was making this whole thing up about Jesus. And I thought, well, how strange that you grew up here in the Bible Belt. But now, today in 2024, that's normal. So many people come from broken homes. So many families have abandoned any faith tradition. And so that becomes a really normal conversation. The other side is people who've gone to church and had a bad experience. They've gotten hurt. They feel betrayed. And just helping people walk through that pain. So that makes us kind of, I look at us as the church of misfit toys, kind of if you go back to Rudolph. Red-nosed reindeer were during Christmas, so that kind of
Absolutely.
fits.
I mean, I guess we're all misfit toys. It's just how much we want to admit, right?
Yes.
And that's
Exactly.
okay. So you mentioned the phrase previously when you were kind of filling out some information about you and your mission. The phrase was, we can't want it more than you do. How does this philosophy guide the way you support individuals in their spiritual journeys?
Well, you just said it in the fact that it's their spiritual journey. I can want it, and we have, especially we do a lot of working with poverty and people not just financially impoverished, but they could be emotionally, they could be spiritually impoverished. And so I can really want this and take this idea of rescuing you, which usually just pushes people further away because I'm trying to be, in a sense, codependent, and I'm just trying to fix you. And if that's my goal, then I've missed the whole point of this whole experience of faith.
Yeah.
And so even when we're helping people come up in their lives financially, I can really want them to do so many things. I've got a plan, I can lay it out, but if you don't want it, then we're just spinning our wheels. And so a lot of times I just let people know we're on a journey, and when you're ready to come sit at the table with us and take that journey, we'll we're here for you.
So to that point, what is your biggest hurdle, you would say, or biggest challenges in finding those people who are facing struggles, who want help but don't know they want help, and getting your message to them?
Well, the biggest struggle, that's a great question, because I'm trying to figure that out, especially with the younger generation, because everybody tells me, hey, I want to be involved in something bigger than myself. I've opened those doors up, and yet people don't want to walk into that ugliness of people's lives. And so I hear one thing, but then when the opportunity is given, I sometimes see another. And I don't think that's across the board. I just know just some of the people that I've encountered. Really, again, wanting it and seeing that they need the help. It's kind of like when working with people with addiction, whatever kind of addiction. If you don't hit step one, that you realize my life's in chaos. If you're a functioning alcoholic or you're a functioning addict of any kind, you don't think you need help. Matter of fact, I'm good. As long as I got my fix, I'm happy.
Yep.
Everybody else around you sees you need help, but you're not at the place yet where you're willing to admit that. Same thing in the spiritual journey.
Yeah. So I guess your approach to both of those is open arms. I'm here when you're ready, but you're not going to spend that time and energy if they are not ready. You just kind of create an inviting space for them to be able to come to.
Yeah, I think we're kind of like an ER.
Yeah, that is
so
very true.
It's open. When you need us, we're here, but we don't want to just patch you up and send you on your way. Actually, the goal would be you come in as a patient, we walk you through your healing, so you go through all that, and then eventually at the end, if I had my way, you would become one of the doctors or one of the people who actually works in the ER to help other people.
To that point, you mentioned the kind of steps you take, the fringe, the crowd, community, kind of like the steps in business that you would take to seek and attract an audience and bring them in. Can you tell me how you identified those steps and how you engage your audience with Renewed Life Church?
One of them, I guess the purposes came from Purpose-Driven Church, which was a book that I read early on in my youth work, and that just resonated with me as I looked at myself and I looked at the people that I was friends with. There would be those that were fringe. They knew nothing about the church. They were outside. They didn't know if they ever wanted to dip their toe in. Then we have a community who might have some idea. They may know a Christian or two, but that could be good or bad. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I remember my story was bad. I remember inviting somebody when I was 18. I was a practicing hypocrite. And this guy I used to get high with and stuff. And he looked at me and laughed at my face and goes, "Why would I ever go to your church, dude?" And that was one of the first times it hit me. Whoa, I'm not living out what I say. But I grew up in a family that wasn't really Christian per se. You know, I had a father who pushed me to go to church, and yet he would also, as I was growing up, push me to do all kinds of things that were very anti what that message would be. And so I just grew up kind of having to walk through a dualistic training. You know what I mean? Or
would you say that walking through that path or walking up and over that path is what led you to want to help others today and help them seek what you didn't receive?
Definitely, most definitely, because especially when I grew up, the kids were seen, not heard. You weren't allowed to ask questions, and even in church, it wasn't very open back then to questions. And I always had lots of questions.
That's good. You can't learn unless you ask questions, right?
That's what I think. And so I've even had people I've even done Bible studies for groups of atheists, and they're like, "Am I going to offend you?" And I'm like, "There's nothing you're going to say that's going to offend me." One, I probably heard it, but two, if you're just coming honest and open, then there's no offense in that.
Yep.
Now, if you're just trying to poke the bear and mess with me, well, I don't really have time for that. Okay,
Absolutely.
We can go have coffee and mess around and do that. But if you're serious, then hey, let's explore that question.
And you enjoy the challenge, it seems like, of having questions asked.
Oh, I love it.
That's wonderful. That's how you know you're on the right path, right? So during COVID, you relied mostly on Facebook and Zoom to connect with your audience. Is that right?
Yes.
So What lessons did you learn from those tools, those social media outlets, and just digital presence in general that kind of helped you expand your reach now that COVID's over and everything?
Man, so much. It was new to us as far as doing all that. I've learned and wanted to do production well. I had friends who had done small independent films, so I kind of have a little background in understanding how things should be done, but training others. And I did like the media because I didn't have to be as perfect. I kind of like that with some of the things that are out there, like TikTok and stuff. It's like you can get away with not being perfect, and that's nice. But reaching people, it worked really well during COVID. The isolation was very heavy, but now it doesn't work as well. And actually people, what I've noticed in the church and non-church world, don't even take the time now to even watch on the old medias.
Really?
They've disconnected. A lot of people never really came back, which exposed, I think, the shallow nature of a lot of people's faith that you might have thought were really deep. But when a crisis hit, they were exposed that they really weren't. So as a church, that's let me know we have to do a better job. You know, that's not on them. That's on us going, you know what where did we fail in helping people go deeper?
Yeah. And have you overcome any of those rocks or turned them over and really tried to strategize how you're going to grow the church and not so much not make those mistakes, but grow out of that?
Very much so. It's not that it always was a number thing, but quit looking at how many people are there and look at the quality of what we're doing and really taking every person where they're at and very holistically looking at not just their spiritual side, because I'm making a sign of a cross for those who can't see if it's a radio, but you know, if I get this relationship right up and down with God, then all my other relationships will work out. And usually as people, we like to just focus on all the other relationships, and then we wonder why we're not having the success that we need. And so really just helping people go deeper, having those hard conversations. And if we find out that, okay, you have, well, I use the term, you can be saved but not free. So you may understand there's God, but you may not be at a place to where you're really going deeper. So emotionally, you may have trauma. Well, if somebody doesn't walk you through that trauma, you're going to have barriers. You may have abandonment issues, not just with your father, your mother. It could be relationships. We need to, I'll throw myself in there, find healing through that. That may be counseling, it may be whatever, but making sure that we're leaning into the spiritual side as well. Asking God for help.
And I assume you've created a lot of connections along the way in building the church to have those resources available to people that are reaching out to them. Are there any particular ventures you have going on right now that you'd like to tell us about and kind of the steps you've taken to build, launch, and grow that?
Well, we're very collaborative. We're very much, we lost our, we moved from that rock and roll club, and then we went to help a sister church in Mansfield for a while. And on Christmas morning in 2016, a 16-year-old burned the church down, and they just wanted to see the looks on our faces. And since that journey, what they saw was people in the grass on Christmas morning on a Sunday just worshiping God. And because it's not about that building.
Wow.
And for us, we came to where we got to a place where we could afford to have this building, that we were gifted this insurance money.
Wow.
So we took that. And so since then we said, you know what, we were freely given this. So any nonprofit that's doing something good in the area, we're going to freely give them a space to do that.
That is wonderful. So you allow them to come in and kind of have their community involvement there at your church.
Yeah. And even some larger churches that would be considered mega churches have small groups because they're wanting to come into the Arlington area, and they've contacted us because they know of our openness, and we just allow them in. I've also worked with Coletta Govan, Dr. Coletta Govan. She created a thing for her ministry house called Lifestyle Management. And so my wife, Lori Key, who is over Safe Families for Children, she just finished going through this with a lot of her single moms and single dads because they're all about family stabilization and foster care prevention. And so this is a great tool. And I'm like, well, why would I not bring this into the church?
Absolutely. So how has that integration helped you grow and the church grow?
A lot of the people that I meet, again, going back to the families and the breakdown, you're not taught a lot of things. I remember being 18 years old and my parents just kind of like, okay, well, you know how to do everything. And I'm going, nobody taught me budgeting. Nobody taught me how to buy a car. Or I even lost a house, my first house I was trying to buy, because I didn't understand that the agent at that time wasn't making the money he thought and just talked me out of signing the papers.
Wow. So you kind of take them back and you start them at that build stage and help them create that infrastructure they needed from the start.
That's our goal is to do that. Because you don't know what you don't know. And so really just walking people through how do we build a life and how do we go forward so we can be successful.
Absolutely. And getting, it seems like one of the major challenges to overcome is having them be able to accept that and vocalize where they need to be or where they are in that growth stage, right?
Very much so. Very much so.
Awesome. So you mentioned the importance of humility and staying connected to God. How do you maintain this focus as a leader?
Well, the best way that when this church started, of course, I thought, well, I'm Greg Key, and I'm going to have about 250 people at least within a couple of months, easy. So I had a little arrogance going there. And so I'm in this club, and the deal was that it was supposed to be cleaned and taken care of for us in the morning before Sundays, but that's not necessarily what took place. And so I would find myself at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can imagine, in a club, and the owner, I knew him, he built 8 stalls for the girls because he thought, well, they need a lot of space. And then the guys didn't have as much, but they had it. So I would spend my Sunday morning with my face in toilets cleaning them. You can just imagine after a night of fun and partying and stuff happening in the club. And so I got to be very humble, and that was really good for me to get there. And I can also hand that off to the church and go, there's nothing that I'm not willing to do. And I see that as Jesus for other people as well, even washing dirty feet. It's like there's nothing that should be above us. And then when I'm doing this, it should be an act of love. I didn't go in there begrudging, I have to do this. I went in there thinking, you know what? I get to create a safe space. I get to create as nice as I can space for even this function that people need. And so it's just an act of love.
That is wonderful. So since the fire, because it seems like the community really rallied around you when you didn't have a space for the church to be, would you say that the community growth has grown exponentially to where you can have these new programs and you have kind of a community outreach program?
I can. Again, there's the opportunities. The community is available to do the things, and we've had many opportunities with different groups. The biggest problem is people who need these resources showing up. I would even say this is Christmas time. People, when I worked with Cornerstone Assistance Network, they would wait till last minute. I need food, or I need toys for my kids. And I'm like, it's December 23rd. You were supposed to sign up for this several months ago. You know, Christmas comes every year. It's not like this was a surprise. But yet when you're in a poverty mindset, or when you're going through something, you're not always thinking of what I need until I need it. Just like my poverty experience, I didn't even really know that there were people that would help me, even though I was at a church that helped people. It seems like, how would you not connect those dots? But if that's not what you're used to doing in my area, then you don't always reach out. And so I think for the community is just being like we've normalized counseling. That used to be a stigma. I know when I was growing up, going to counseling was a very negative thing. Now, if you tell somebody you've got a counselor, it's almost in vogue. Well, I've got this counselor and I'm getting help, which would have been nice.
Right. Especially, I feel like everybody kind of shunned away from it until COVID.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And then it was like, once everybody has time to sit in your house and think, it's like, I need help. and they may need more help than just a therapist, that would have been a perfect time in my mind to start watching those live broadcasts of the church. It's almost, the availability couldn't be more easy. So are you currently still streaming your services, or are you kind of meeting in more intimate groups?
We are at just about ready to finish taking ourselves to that streaming level. We just had last Sunday, had one of my tech people come in there. I'm just blessed to have him. He's just a part of our church. And he said, I've got all the bugs out of it, so we're going to do some soft launching and see how that goes, make sure it works fine, because we want to put out a quality product so
Absolutely.
that people, because I know, just like this, if somebody's listening and there's lots of buzz and cracks and stuff, well, they're not going to listen long. So we want to at least take away any barriers we can. But just really just encouraging people to connect, not just with us, just connect somewhere. It's something that I think on our sign outside, it says discovering relevant Christianity.
Right.
And so the biggest problem I have today is the majority of people don't see it as relevant to their life.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. Especially from your perspective, you would say the majority don't.
I would say the majority. I'm in Arlington, 400,000 people. We have so many churches, but I would say the vast majority that my neighbors and that the people around don't see that there's any real difference in us. And when they're in a crisis, they don't immediately think, oh, the church can help me. Matter of fact, that might be one of the last places they go, because they really don't understand the transformation or the help that churches offer.
Absolutely.
That used to be traditionally understood. We've lost that as a culture, because we lost the culture war, basically.
For sure. The church used to be where everyone came, no matter what, for help.
Well, look at Notre Dame. It just was rebuilt. If you look at some of the ancient cities, all the roads went to the cathedrals that were in the middle of the city.
Interesting.
That's not how we build cities today.
That's right. In every movie you see, it is built like that, and especially in those times. So poverty alleviation is one of your main focuses, right?
Yes.
What initiatives or programs does Renewed Life Church do or host to support individuals that are going through these things?
We have a lot of one-on-one work, just really helping people rise above. Now, we're not necessarily a soup kitchen, even though we do help with Salvation Army. Okay. And that we go have, I encourage my people to go. A lot of times it gives us more help. Yeah. And then my goal there too is we're not just serving and smiling. I want you to get to know people, because every person we meet is created in the image of God. And so we need to see them as valuable. And if we see them as valuable, then they may actually start grasping that concept that, oh, maybe there's more for me. And just walking them through that. But again, if that's not what you want to do, we've had several homeless individuals that we want to help them, and we'll speak realistically. This is your barrier, and they may or may not, because of their own personal choice, say that's not what I'm really willing to give up. Well, then we have to be at the space where we're going, well, okay, then we're just going to love you where you're at. Yeah. Which with a compassionate heart seems not very compassionate. But the reality is, again, I can't want it more than you do. I don't want anybody living on the street. But if I put you in, and I'll just say this, I've seen programs where we put people in housing. Nobody's ever taken them and taught them how to have a job. Nobody's taught them how to even take care of a house. Nobody's taught them how to do meals. Everything I've known, because I'm chronically homeless, is to live in a camp, and I don't really want to be indoors. That seems crazy to me. And then in a year, I take that program away. Well, that sounds nice, and that's what the government does, but it's not. Now I've traumatized you twice, and so you kind of got used to being indoors. You got used to maybe cooking and things, but it's not a quick solution. I know the people we've worked with, we're 8-9 years in with some individuals that we've walked with who were strung out on drugs on park benches and alienated from their families, and today they're not. But yet they still, because of that the poverty mindsets that still are ingrained are a hair's breadth sometimes from going back to homelessness. And so that's where I think the church and community is so vital is, when people hit those moments, we can rally around, we can help, we can be there. But again, they have to let us know.
Yes. Without the embarrassment, they can come to you without that feeling of shame, which is amazing because, we can all say we have friends, but do you really know who your friends are unless you go through something like that, right?
It's true. It's true.
It's tough to think about. So what is your vision for the future for Renewed Life Church? What do you have upcoming that you guys are looking forward to? Or
Well, we're in Christmas, and so I know on December 20th, we're going to do a Christmas night of worship. We like to do nights of worship, just celebrate with music, but we've also, a cousin of mine came up with a thing called Artgate. Used to do this in Deep Ellum in Dallas. And so we don't just do worship. We like to also, if you're an artist, you want to come and paint while you listen to music or sculpt or whatever. We like to create spaces for artists to just create. I have a lady who does watercolors, and so that's how she takes notes of my sermons. She sits there with a little palette, and she just writes words and paints and creates these little storyboards. And it was so funny because at first she was shy about it. I was like, is everybody going to think this is okay? And I'm like, here, why would they not?
Absolutely.
You've got freedom, and that's how you express yourself. That's how you process. Then do what you need to do. Matter of fact, we just set up with tables, and everybody just sits around round tables. You can bring your coffee, your snacks. You can lay your Bible out. It's just a very relaxed atmosphere. And we've done that from the beginning because that was kind of then 20 years ago, there weren't many churches that were relaxed. And so now we're going, okay, now past being relaxed, now we need some depth.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of our next vision is helping people get that freedom. So we're comfortable, but now let's get uncomfortable and do the hard work of becoming who we're supposed to be.
Right. So after you get kind of the basis done, you've got to kind of walk through that fire and face it to come out it and see that it wasn't so bad. Sometimes the fear, I guess, is a little scarier than actually doing it, right?
Exactly. Fear and pride are the two biggest things that from what I see, keep people from moving forward into their healing.
Absolutely. I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I'm sure there's some things I need to heal from that I'm good right now on, right?
We're all there.
Yes. So the upcoming projects are kind of wanting to expand that. You're in the scale phase of that program. You've got them to where they're feeling welcome and warm, and now putting that heat and pressure on them to get better themselves, right?
Right. And as we're doing that, because we're a small church, we're not really large. But as we are doing that, that also is causing our people, now that they've received, now they have to step up and be a part of helping other people. If you look at the 12-step program, the last step is to go share what you know. Well, a lot of our people are pretty close to that last step or getting there. And now it's like, okay, the church doesn't run by magic little fairies or angels that come around and do everything. Somebody actually had to make the coffee. Somebody has to sweep and clean. Somebody has to actually mow or clean that toilet or mow the lawn and do some of the behind the scenes. And just like we like to be greeted, well, now it's your turn to go greet somebody and make them feel welcome.
Yeah, you give what you want to receive, right? And then it creates a routine for people to get in a more positive mindset. I know that changing atmospheres in employment even can affect your entire work life for the rest of your life. Your spiritual life is even more important, no matter what you believe, to actually have those people around you that support you, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yes. So if you could leave one final word of wisdom or inspiration for our listeners, what would you share with them?
I would say dig in. Our mission statement is transformed by God to transform the world. There is more. And every person I meet has purpose. They have a plan. And I just really encourage everybody to dig into that. Have that hard conversation. Look at God if you've never had. To me, that He is the most important decision and conversation you're ever going to have. The second one is if you decide to get married, who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. But if you don't have that first one figured out, then you're not really setting a great moral. You're not setting a really great framework for how you function throughout the rest of your life.
That is wonderful words
whether
of
you
advice.
agree with us or not, it's something that you need to know for why you agree or why you don't agree. And we're ready to I'll just say this, have those hard conversations.
You are ready.
We're not throwing stones at anybody. So that's where we're
It's
at.
nice that you welcome the hard conversations, not as a critical conversation, but let me help you understand where you're coming from, right? You're trying to open up to people. That's wonderful. I need to think about those words of wisdom more. So if anybody wanted to come to the church to help volunteer, to come to service, what's the address of where you're at and how else can they reach you?
Okay. We're at 1130 West Division Street in Arlington, Texas, in between Cooper and Davis. I joke, O'Reilly's will love this. We're right across the street from O'Reilly's. Everybody knows them. I hope someday that people go, where's O'Reilly's? Oh, it's across the street from Renewed Life Church. It's a red and dark gray building. It's got a little chimney on it, so it's got an interesting look to it. I don't know why, but it doesn't really look like a church, which fits me fine. And to meet us, I guess I'd say our web address is yourrenewal.org.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to find us now. We're updating that, so if anybody's kind of checking us out within the next month, we'll have our updated and beautiful looking new website here in a few weeks, and we'll be streaming as well.
Great. So you and Lori, do you have any social media platforms anyone can reach out to, or just the website would probably be
I would say
their
the
best
website connects everybody there. I mean, we do have an app for the church, Arlington Renewed Life. You can go to any of your app stores right there and find us. For if you need prayer, tells you we do like a 6 a.m. prayer. We do a soaking time when you just can come and nobody's really leading. It's just music and you just sit in God's presence. More of a meditative time.
I like that.
There's classes during the week if you want to work through different things that are going on in your life, from addiction to we've had a group called Betrayal and Beyond, so women who've been abused by men in porn or sexual addiction. Then we've got a group for those guys to get their healing, which is a crazy thing, but in today's world, that's the church has to get in the ugly with everybody.
Right. The world is not always pretty.
It is not. So there's all kinds of things that are going on. That'd be the best way to find out what's happening.
Awesome. I think I might go look myself to see what I can offer to people. So
That'd be great.
thank you so much for coming on the show today, Greg, and sharing your story and about the growth of the whole church as a whole. For all of our guests out there, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Market It with Atma.